What if the biggest threat to your comfort isn't the clutter you see, but the quiet things you've learned to ignore? That extra tote bag, the good container you swore you'd reuse, the keys to what exactly? They don't seem like clutter. They feel helpful, familiar, but one by one, they chip away at your space, your clarity, your sense of peace. Especially after 60, when every drawer you open and every step you take at home should feel easy, not exhausting. These aren't just space wasters, they're energy drainers, silently stealing your breathing room and replacing it with hidden overwhelm. If your home has felt just a little too full lately, even though everything seems in place, these 10 traps might be why. Tap like and subscribe if your goal is a lighter, safer, more peaceful home where every item has meaning and nothing gets in the way of your best years. Lorna is 68 years old and lives just outside Charleston, South Carolina. She spent most of her working life managing the local post office, efficient, dependable, always on her feet. Her home was her sanctuary, and after retiring, she took pride in keeping everything tidy and well-stocked. There were bins labeled for every season, shelves full of supplies just in case, and drawers packed with the little extras she thought might be useful someday. To most people, her home looked neat, but beneath that surface order was a quiet weight she hadn't noticed building over time. Then one weekend, her 7-year-old grandson, Isaac, came to stay. While unpacking his toys, he gently asked, "Grandma, where can I build my racetrack?" Lorna looked around. The living room floor had a basket of folded throws, a magazine rack, a few decorative floor lanterns, and a side table she never used but didn't dare move. The guest bedroom had turned into long-term storage. Even the hallway had a narrow bench lined with umbrellas and tote bags. There wasn't a single open space for a child to just be a child. Lorna didn't feel shame. She felt stunned. She had worked so hard to make her house welcoming, and somehow, without realizing it, had crowded out the very people she loved. Later that night, she stood in the hallway and saw her home differently. It wasn't messy. It was over-prepared, like she designed it for a life that never slowed down. She kept 4 extra mixing bowls in case of big dinners that didn't happen anymore. She held on to gear for hobbies she hadn't touched in years. And behind every cabinet door was a layer of items that whispered, "You might need me again." That moment became her wake-up call, not to toss everything, but to reclaim her home for the life she was actually living. A life with space to play, to breathe, to enjoy, without having to step around things that no longer serve her. Space-wasting trap 1. Travel-sized toiletries hoarded from years past. It starts small, literally. A tiny shampoo bottle from a weekend hotel stay. A sample lotion tucked into your purse at a doctor's visit. A little bar of soap with a hotel logo that smells like lavender. You bring it home thinking, "I'll use this when I travel," or "This is perfect for emergencies." But over the years, these mini toiletries multiply like rabbits. They hide in bathroom drawers, linen closets, and toiletry bags. Before long, they fill entire baskets or bins, some leaking, some dried out, and most long forgotten. Lorna had an entire drawer in her hallway bathroom filled with them. She didn't even realize how many until one afternoon she tried to make space for her arthritis creams. Opening the drawer, she found over 50 items, duplicates, triplicates, and hotel freebies for vacations she couldn't even remember. Some bottles had labels so worn the text had faded. One tiny conditioner had hardened like jelly. The surprising thing? She didn't consider herself a hoarder. "They're just little things," she said. But they added up. Each item seemed harmless, but together, they swallowed valuable storage space. Space she needed for items she actually used, like daily medications or her nighttime skin treatment. What's worse, these products create a kind of background stress. Every time she opened the drawer, she had to sift, shift, and sort. She spent time looking for what she needed instead of simply reaching for it. That mental friction, though small, adds up, especially when you're dealing with other changes that come with aging. Here's the fix. Pick out 2 or 3 favorites that you truly use. A travel lotion for your purse. A shampoo you keep for guests. Then be brave. Toss anything that's expired, dried, sticky, or hasn't been touched in a year. For unopened items in good condition, many local shelters or senior centers will gladly accept them. By the time Lorna was done, that bathroom drawer was clear, calm, and easy to use. She now reaches for what she needs without feeling guilty or overwhelmed. And for the first time in years, she had a place to store her heating pad right where she needed it. No more digging past crumbling soap bars to find relief. Space-wasting trap 2. Outdated hobby supplies you no longer touch. For many seniors, hobbies were once the heartbeat of free time, a way to unwind, express creativity, or connect with others. But over time, interests shift, seasons change, and life quietly moves in new directions. What doesn't move? The supplies. Lorna had a walk-in closet that used to hold her craft bins. Inside were organized boxes of embroidery thread, yarn from a local shop that had closed over a decade ago, and a sewing machine she hadn't used since her granddaughter's baby shower 8 years ago. On a higher shelf sat 2 tackle boxes filled with fishing gear from when her late husband was alive. She hadn't gone fishing since he passed, but she kept the boxes anyway, just in case. The truth? These supplies weren't clutter, they were memories. And that's what made them so hard to face. But what Lorna began to realize was that holding on to tools for hobbies she no longer practiced wasn't the same as holding on to the joy they brought her. The gear was just stuff. What stayed with her was the memory of the baby blanket she once made, the scrapbook she created for her parents' anniversary, or the quiet mornings by the lake with her husband. The physical items had become dust-covered anchors, weighing down the space she now needed for things like mobility aids, photo albums, or simple storage she could actually use. She didn't want to throw away everything, and she didn't have to. Here's what she did instead. She chose one medium-sized memory box. Inside, she placed a favorite crochet needle, 1 roll of yarn, and a hand-stitched napkin she once made. She took photos of the rest, projects she was proud of, and donated the unused supplies to a local senior center, where others were still quilting and crafting with joy. For the fishing gear, she invited her neighbor's teenage grandson to take a look. His eyes lit up, and she saw something she hadn't felt in years: the excitement of someone else discovering that hobby for the first time. If your hobby zone hasn't been touched in 2 years, it may be time to turn it into a gift instead of a graveyard. Keep a few cherished pieces to honor that chapter, but make space for who you are now. You're not letting go of passion, you're letting it live again somewhere else. Space-wasting trap 3. Bulk shopping overflow you forgot you had. Bulk shopping can feel like a wise, resourceful decision, especially for those raised during leaner times, when buying in bulk meant security, savings, and fewer trips to the store. But for many seniors today, that habit has quietly turned into a trap. Not because it was wrong, but because life changed and the habits didn't. Lorna still had a membership to a wholesale club, even though she lived alone. Her pantry looked stocked: canned soups, sauces, beans, and boxes of pasta. But much of it hadn't been touched in years. In the garage, her old chest freezer was packed solid. But when she finally opened it to make space for frozen veggies, she discovered meals from 2018, ice-crusted and forgotten. She hadn't rotated her supply because she never felt the urgency to. She had enough, so she didn't look closely. It wasn't just expired food, it was expired expectations. The good deal of bulk shopping often becomes a burden when you're no longer cooking for a big family or preparing for guests. Items sit unused, take up precious kitchen or garage space, and silently drain money you thought you were saving. Even worse, these forgotten items crowd out the things you do use daily. How many times have you gone to put away a new grocery item and had to rearrange dusty cans from 2015 just to make room? How often have you bought duplicates simply because you couldn't see what you already had? Here's what worked for Lorna. Once a month, she does a pantry and freezer rotation check. She uses the oldest items first and makes sure the front of her shelves and freezer only contain things she plans to eat in the next month. She also downsized her bulk shopping dramatically. Instead of buying 10 cans of beans because they were a bargain, she now buys 2 and saves more by actually using what she buys. And most importantly, she stopped buying for a household that no longer exists. Her life now is simpler, calmer, and filled with meals she actually enjoys, without digging through expired goods to get there. Letting go of bulk doesn't mean letting go of preparedness. It means right-sizing your home to match your life today, not the one you had a decade ago. Space-wasting trap 4. Unused or duplicate extension cords, adapters, and power strips. There's a certain drawer or bin in nearly every senior's home. A dark, tangled jungle of cords, plugs, adapters, and mystery chargers. Some are knotted together like spaghetti. Others are coiled neatly, but haven't been used in over a decade. You may not even know what half of them are for anymore. But they stay quietly collecting dust because what if you need one someday? Lorna called it her electrical graveyard. It started with one extra phone charger. Then came the adapter for a DVD player she no longer owned. Eventually, she had an entire plastic bin in her hallway closet labeled tech stuff. Inside were 6 power strips, 10 random chargers, and a handful of USB cords that didn't fit any device she currently used. Some were so old, they connected to devices that had become obsolete before her grandson was even born. Why did she keep them? Because, like so many others, she believed they were too useful to throw away. Tossing them felt wasteful, even irresponsible. But the truth was, they weren't serving her anymore. In fact, they were costing her more than she realized. Every time she needed to find the right cord, she had to dig through the useless ones. Every time she opened that closet, she felt a small wave of frustration. And when she needed extra space for a heating pad or blood pressure monitor, that bin of outdated electronics took priority. Why? The turning point came when her neighbor's son offered to help her organize her tech area. With his help, they tested every plug. If it didn't match a current device or hadn't been used in over a year, it went in a recycling bag. She kept 3 cords, one for her phone, one for her tablet, and one backup. Everything else gone. Properly recycled through a local e-waste program. The result? Not only did she free up space, she freed herself from a low-level stressor she didn't even realize she was carrying. And now, when she needs a cord, she knows exactly where it is and what it's for. Here's your challenge. Open that drawer or bin. Be honest. If you don't know what it connects to or haven't used it since the last presidential election, it's time to let it go. Keep only what works, what fits, and what you need now. Your home deserves clarity, not clutter disguised as someday. Space-wasting trap 5. Overloaded key hooks or bowls by the door. It's one of the smallest clutter zones in the house, but it carries a surprising emotional weight. The key hook by the door or that small bowl on the console table. It seems innocent enough. After all, keys are small, harmless, even necessary. But for many seniors, these spots quietly evolve into shrines of forgotten access, filled with keys that no longer open anything, but still feel impossible to throw away. Lorna's key station had 12 keys. 12. One for her current car, one for the front door, one for the back. The rest? A mystery. One was from her old Jeep she sold in 2014. Another belonged to a padlock that once secured her garden shed, which had since been torn down. There were mailbox keys, cabinet keys, even one she was convinced must have belonged to her neighbor's house from years ago, but she wasn't sure. She never questioned them because they were out of the way and not hurting anything. But they were. Each time she reached for her actual keys, she hesitated, sorting, trying, checking which one was which. That tiny moment of indecision, repeated daily, created a subtle kind of mental noise. And when her daughter asked her to make a spare house key for emergencies, she was too embarrassed to admit she didn't know which one was actually current. The deeper truth? Keys carry more than metal. They carry memories. They represent freedom, responsibility, places once owned or loved. Tossing a key feels like saying goodbye to something we forgot we were still holding on to. But keeping them, when they no longer serve a purpose, costs us clarity and confidence. Lorna's fix was simple but meaningful. She laid every key out on her kitchen table and tested each one. If it worked, she labeled it with a small tag. If it didn't, she set it aside. She recycled the unknowns at her local hardware store, which accepted scrap metal. In the end, she had just 4 keys left, clearly marked and ready when she needed them. And something else changed too. Her entryway felt calmer, cleaner. That sense of order greeted her each time she walked in. No more fumbling, no more guessing, just peace. If your key station feels like a pocket-sized time capsule, it's time for a reset. Identify, label, and let go of the past you're no longer living in. Because sometimes the key to a lighter home is letting go of the ones that no longer open anything. Space-wasting trap 6. Decorative seasonal items that never leave storage. For many seniors, decorating for the holidays used to be a joyful tradition. The house transformed, pumpkins for fall, shamrocks in March, flags in July, hearts in February. But as time goes on, the energy to decorate for every season often fades. What doesn't fade, however, are the bins. Stacked in closets, garages, and attics labeled for each holiday, yet rarely opened. Lorna once had 7 large storage bins marked seasonal decor. There were pastel Easter bunnies with chipped ears, paper hearts that hadn't been hung since a retirement party, and 4th of July lawn signs she hadn't used since her old neighborhood had a block party back in 2006. Yet year after year, she kept those bins. She didn't use the contents, but she couldn't bring herself to let them go either. Why? Because those decorations weren't just objects. They were reminders of kids at home, of neighbors now gone, of a busier life filled with parties and traditions. Letting go felt like closing a door on those memories. But keeping them untouched, aging, and forgotten wasn't honoring them either. It was simply turning storage space into a museum for a life that had already changed. And there's another reason they stay: guilt. Some are gifts from grandkids or friends. Letting go felt like saying, "This doesn't matter to me anymore." But the truth is, the person who gave you that Easter centerpiece probably wouldn't want it taking up space in your hallway closet if it's never coming out again. Lorna's shift came when she wanted to store her foldable walker near the front closet and couldn't. The closet was full of plastic totes labeled for holidays she didn't celebrate anymore. So she made a decision: one bin. Just one, to hold all the non-Christmas decorations she still genuinely enjoyed. A spring wreath, one autumn garland, a soft snowman that reminded her of her sister. Everything else, donated to a nearby senior center that still decorates for every season with joy. Now, she pulls out her seasonal bin in seconds, not dread. Her closets feel lighter, and her walker fits right where she needs it. If your seasonal storage hasn't seen daylight in years, it's not serving you, it's crowding you. Keep what sparks joy now, not what used to. Share the rest with someone whose season could be brightened by the very things you've outgrown. Because memories don't live in boxes. They live in the moments you make room for today. Space-wasting trap 7. Old glass jars, coffee tins, and good containers. If you grew up during lean times, when margarine tubs doubled as soup containers and glass jars were treasures, not trash, then saving good containers wasn't just a habit. It was wisdom. It meant you were practical, prepared, and resourceful. But what once was a smart way to stretch, every penny has quietly turned into a storage trap hiding in plain sight. Lorna had 2 entire cabinets in her kitchen dedicated to empty jars and containers. Glass peanut butter jars stacked inside one another. Butter tubs, Cool Whip containers, and yogurt cups washed and dried, just waiting for a purpose. Some still had labels peeling off, others had warped lids that no longer fit. She told herself they were for leftovers or craft projects. But deep down, she hadn't used most of them in years. Why do they stay? Because tossing them feels wrong, wasteful even. These containers represent a mindset that helped many seniors survive tough times. They were never just trash. They were opportunity, potential. A container wasn't a throwaway, it was a backup plan. But here's the honest truth. These good containers often end up doing nothing. They crowd shelves, fall on your head when you open a cabinet, and make it hard to find the one container you actually need. They multiply quietly and subtly make your space feel busier, more chaotic, and less functional. Lorna's shift happened one afternoon while meal prepping. She went to pack leftovers and opened the tub cabinet. 3 mismatched lids fell out. She reached for a container only to discover it was cracked. The one she needed was buried beneath 10 others she hadn't used in over a decade. That's when she had a realization. I'm saving these like I'm still feeding 5 people every night. But now it's just me, and I rarely need more than 2 containers at a time. So she did something bold. She kept her favorite 5, 2 glass jars she used for pantry staples, 2 plastic containers with tight-fitting lids, and 1 just for soup. Everything else recycled. Then she treated herself to a small, modern set of stackable containers that actually worked. No guessing, no digging, no balancing act every time she opened the door. Letting go of old containers doesn't mean forgetting where you came from. It means respecting how far you've come. Keep what you use, not what once had value. Your cabinets should serve your life today, not preserve clutter from a life that's already evolved. Space-wasting trap 8. Freebies, giveaways, and promotional junk. They arrive quietly, almost invisibly. A pen from your insurance company. A calendar from a charity you donated to once. A tote bag from church event. A notepad with a politician's name on it. They weren't things you asked for, but now somehow they live in your kitchen drawer, your hall closet, your nightstand. And over time, they've formed their own little army of free stuff that takes up real space in your home. Lorna had a drawer in her entryway she jokingly called the giveaway graveyard. Inside were more than a dozen pens that barely worked, 3 outdated pocket calendars, multiple notepads, a branded pill organizer, and no less than 8 reusable tote bags, none of which she actually liked using. Some were too thin and tore easily. Others were stiff and bulky. But she kept them all because they were free. And free feels useful. Or, at the very least, hard to throw away. That's the emotional trap. Free items come with a feeling of value. They feel like a small reward or token of appreciation. And when they come in the mail or at an event, it feels impolite to say no. But what starts as just one more bag quickly becomes a pile. And the clutter that builds isn't just physical, it's mental. Each item becomes a decision delayed. Maybe I'll use this later, or I should keep this just in case. Before long, drawers meant for essentials are filled with objects you never chose, never loved, and never needed. Lorna's wake-up call came when she couldn't find her reading glasses one morning. She opened the drawer, rummaged past a branded highlighter and 3 tiny flashlights, and thought, why am I digging through junk I don't even remember, getting just to find the one thing I actually use? That day, she laid everything out on the dining room table. One by one, she tested every pen, flipped through the calendars, checked the condition of each tote. She kept one bag, the soft, sturdy one her neighbor had given her, and recycled the rest. She kept one notepad and her favorite blue pen. Everything else was donated, recycled, or thrown away without guilt. Now, her drawer opens easily. Her glasses are right where they should be, and she's learned to say no to freebies that don't add true value. Here's your gentle challenge. The next time someone hands you a branded tote, a novelty pen, or a flimsy calendar, ask yourself, does this serve my life or just fill my drawer? Keep only what truly supports you, because your space should be a reflection of your choices, not someone else's giveaways. Space-wasting trap 9. Stacks of serving trays, cake stands, and party gear. There's a kind of silence that settles over a cabinet when something inside hasn't been touched in years. For Lorna, it was the top shelf above her refrigerator. Up there sat 3 cake stands, 2 large punch bowls, a dozen matching serving trays, and an oversized party platter shaped like a Christmas wreath. She hadn't used most of them since her husband's retirement party over a decade ago. Once upon a time, Lorna was the go-to hostess. Thanksgiving dinners, baby showers, church potlucks. Her home buzzed with laughter, food, and full tables. Her serving gear wasn't just functional, it was part of her identity. The large white tray for deviled eggs. The polished wood board for cheese and crackers. The tiered dessert stand for her famous lemon bars. But over the years, life shifted. The kids grew up and moved states away. Her gatherings became smaller, simpler. Lunch with a neighbor, coffee with her sister, takeout with her daughter. The big serving pieces stayed in place, untouched but emotionally loaded. To her, getting rid of them felt like admitting those days were gone. And that's what makes this trap so powerful. These items don't just take up physical space. They occupy emotional real estate. They hold memories of roles once played. The host, the baker, the center of the party. Letting go can feel like letting a part of yourself slip away. But here's what Lorna discovered. Releasing those items didn't erase who she was. It gave her room to breathe in who she is now. She chose one all-purpose tray, lightweight, easy to clean, suitable for everything from cookies to sandwiches. The rest? She offered them to her church's kitchen team, who were thrilled to receive beautiful, still useful pieces for community events. The cake stand went to her granddaughter, who had just started baking. The punch bowl found a new life at a local shelter that hosts holiday dinners. In their place, Lorna stored the things she actually uses. Her daily dishes, her favorite mugs, the coffee press she loves. The shelves weren't just cleaner. They felt like her current life. Comfortable, lived in, honest. If your cabinets are crowded with tools from a past chapter, take a moment to ask, when was the last time I used this? And am I keeping it for my future or out of guilt for leaving the past? You haven't lost your identity. You've simply evolved. And now your space can, too. Space-wasting trap 10. Sentimental but empty boxes. There's something oddly powerful about a well-made box, especially the kind that comes with a new phone, tablet, or appliance. The corners are crisp. The lid fits just right. The packaging feels sturdy, almost too nice to toss. And so it stays tucked away in the back of a closet, under a bed, or stacked neatly in a cabinet. Not because it's needed, but because it feels valuable, or at least like it might be useful someday. Lorna had a shelf in her guest room closet filled with boxes. The original packaging for her iPad. The box for a blender she received 3 Christmases ago. Even the tall, narrow box her living room lamp came in. Each time she tried to declutter, she'd pause. But what if I need to return it? Or it's just too perfect to get rid of? And she's not alone. Many older adults hold on to empty boxes for logical reasons. They protect expensive items, make resale easier, or store neatly. But here's the truth. Most of us never use them again. That lamp? Still working, never boxed up. The blender? Used twice and now sits on the counter. The iPad? Still going strong after 4 years. Meanwhile, those boxes are quietly stealing valuable real estate in your home. Space you could use for extra bedding, mobility tools, seasonal clothing, or simply room to breathe. And even worse, those boxes are empty, but still full of mental weight. Every time you see them, you're reminded of a task you might need to do someday. They don't spark joy. They spark indecision. Lorna eventually had to ask herself a tough question. Am I keeping the box for the item or the guilt of possibly needing it later? Once she realized she'd never resell her phone or return the mixer, the choice became clear. She kept one nice, medium-sized box for wrapping gifts or the rare return and recycled the rest. Now, that shelf in her closet holds things she actually uses. Her heating blanket, a small overnight bag, and an organized tray of her holiday cards. Every time she opens it, she feels relief, not the weight of cardboard what-ifs. If your cabinets or closets are filled with beautiful, empty boxes, ask yourself this. When was the last time I actually used one? Don't let packaging take priority over peace. Reclaim your space. Your home deserves better than being a storage unit for someday. By the end of her quiet, one-room-at-a-time journey, Lorna had cleared out over 12 square feet of space. Not by tossing precious heirlooms or family keepsakes, but by gently releasing what no longer reflected her present life. The hotel soaps, the old craft bins, the unopened tote bags. They weren't just taking up room in drawers or closets. They were crowding her clarity, weighing down her routines, and silently pulling her attention backward instead of forward. What changed wasn't the structure of her home. It was the story it told. Instead of being filled with things that represented just in case or used to be, her home now reflected who she was today. Calm, purposeful, and open to joy in small, meaningful ways. She didn't lose herself in the process. In fact, she found herself again, this time without the extra weight. Because letting go isn't about discarding your past. It's about giving your present room to breathe. It's about allowing your home to serve you, not burden you. And when your space begins to reflect your current life stage, every room becomes a little easier to walk through. Every cabinet feels lighter. Every moment inside your home feels more peaceful. So now it's your turn. Take a moment and ask yourself, which trap surprised you most today? Which item came to mind? Quiet, hidden, maybe a little dusty, that you now realize doesn't belong in your life anymore. If this video helped you see your space differently, give it a like. Comment below with the one trap you're ready to tackle this week. And if you know someone who's been feeling overwhelmed by invisible clutter, share this with them. Sometimes, all we need is a gentle nudge to start fresh. And don't forget, this is just the beginning. For more fresh, practical advice on living well and aging with intention, subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors. Because your home should be a place where you breathe easier, move freely, and live more fully, starting now.